What do you love? What is the thing that when you think about it, you light up inside, right? It's a thing that somebody asks you a question, you can't stop talking about it.
Right.
What is it that you love?
Right.
And so often, like, one of my natural gifts is math. I'm really great at math. From the time I was a child, adults in my neighborhood would come to my parents to ask for me to tutor them in math, right?
Wow.
But I also loved math. I had a
Right.
love for it. I was naturally good at it. It's something
Right.
people always ask me to do. And so one of the things that I do now, I was a college math professor, and even though, I'm self-employed and I focus on coaching, I still do a little math tutoring because I love math. And so if I ask you what you love and kind of put some of those questions together, it can help direct you in the right direction.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our goal is to inspire and empower you to live your best audacious life ever. I'm totally thrilled to have you again, as always, joining us on the podcast, and grateful for your time and your presence. We're going to talk about purpose and finding your purpose. It's kind of like embarking on a journey through a maze where every turn reveals a piece of your true self that was been waiting to be discovered. Just like our guest, Regina Sunshine, she helps people navigate through the twists and turns of life, guiding them to uncover their innermost passions and purpose. Regina Sunshine Robinson is a purpose-driven life coach and author of the upcoming book, Chasing Sunshine. She's got a background in coaching and inspiring others to live their best audacious life. And, Regina has dedicated her entire life to helping individuals recognize their true purpose and live that fulfillment. On today's episode, we have the honor of having Regina join us, and really she's a beacon of positivity and purpose. Her insights and experiences will shed light on the importance of finding purpose within the transformative power it can bring to your life. Regina certainly brings a ray of sunshine, and I'm certain that you'll all enjoy. On the Audacious Living Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Absolutely. We spend, so much time here on this podcast encouraging people to live their best audacious lives and live with such freedom and boldness and live out their passions, all these sorts of things that they're within our grasp. And so for some, hold back on or don't always do so. And it could be for a variety of reasons. And one of them, which we'll talk about today, for some, is not knowing what their purpose is or having to find what their purpose is. And so up to that point, they're kind of floating around, not really knowing where to go or what to do next because of that, again, that purpose piece is missing, which is very much in line with the work that you do. So maybe Absolutely. As a starting point, I can get you to sort of talk about, I guess, what the work you do and kind of how you got to the place you're at.
Well, the interesting thing is I feel like I've been doing this work my whole life. I just didn't know I was doing it. All right. So my whole life, I've been the kind of person people have come to for advice or coaching, and you just do because that's who you are. But I actually had a business coach that kind of led me down a path where this work became my actual work for my life. But for me, I've always been someone who helped people. I tell people my goal is that I was able to help a lot of people is to figure out what was next for their life. What were they supposed to be doing? And so as I saw that I kept getting asked the same questions, right? And helping people, with the same work, I said, let me create a course that is actually outlined to help people self-discover, because your purpose is inside of you. You're not going to find it out in the world. You're going to find it inside.
Right.
But a self-discovery course that allows people to ask themselves the questions that will help lead them to their purpose. And so I wrote that course. I'm actually writing the book for that course right now. It's called Chasing Sunshine. And has helped a lot of people, just by someone asking them the questions that no one's ever asked them before,
Right.
and having them pause and really think about those answers. And they recognize that their purpose in the earth, these are things they've already been thinking about, things that they already love, things that already, are tied to their passions. They just didn't recognize that it had a name and that they could take it and focus it into specific efforts.
The piece I always smile about when we talk about, uncovering our passions, discovering our passion, or finding our passions is that they were always there, right? and when you hit it and you're like, oh, this is what it is, you're like, of course this is what it is.
Yes.
Absolutely, right. And I've always said it's really interesting when we talk about the outside, the perspective of outside individuals, right? Like, to a certain degree, and we've all heard that, well, what other people think about you doesn't matter, and that kind of stuff. And there's truth into that. There's certainly truth to that. But also there's truth to those that when people say something about you, or you would be good at this, you listen to that too, right? So it's really interesting because those on the outside can see. It's like in vivid technicolor, and it's right there in front of you, and it only makes sense to them. We're the ones that oftentimes say, well, I don't know, and I'm not sure, and maybe I'll do something else, but we should be listening.
Absolutely. One of the things I found in my journey is that when I look back at my life, I found people asking me to do the same types of things over and over again.
Yes.
They recognized that I had a gift in a particular area, even before I knew that's what it was. I was just helping people because I love people, right? Yeah. And so as I began to really examine what that was, I saw, just like you said, other people were speaking it to me because they were asking me to do it over and over again. I just didn't recognize it. And, for me, one of the things that kind of solidified it, I was at a church in South Carolina. People go to the altar to get prayed for. And I was always one of those people, the person on the left would get a word, the person on the right would get a word. I never got anything. And this day, this woman looked at me and said, she says, more than anyone here, God has gifted you with the ability to lift the heads of the brokenhearted, to help those that are bruised. And I was like, yeah, that's what I've been doing. And so, again, those confirmations is what I call it. There are people who can help confirm those things. So then it's even more solid in what you know. It's like, okay, I know this, then I get confirmation of this. And so, yeah, for sure, this is the thing I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, no, it's so easy to lose sight of that. Because of the doubt. Maybe we have doubts or we're not sure. Mm-hmm. But I've often said, like, that thing that you do naturally, that doesn't take you any effort, that you can do in your sleep, that's easy for you. Those things we oftentimes take for granted the most, right? Because what we don't recognize is someone on the outside is going, man, I wish I could do that thing that Regina does.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how, but man, I wish I could do that. And meanwhile, we're going like, whatever, no big deal, right? Just because it's easy for us, right? So, but there is power and value in that, and it's important to recognize. That's my point, really.
Absolutely. In the book I'm writing, there are what I call 10 purpose finding questions. Okay. And one of those is, what are you naturally good at? What do you do effortlessly? What is easy for you? Just all the things you just said. Because when you begin to consider those things, it really begins to narrow down for you, what that purpose is. And a lot of times, like you said, those are not thoughts we always have. And for a lot of people, no one's ever asked them that question. Nobody's ever pointed them in that direction. And so it's not for me to tell them, of course, what their purpose is. It's for me to help lead them down a road that they discover for themselves what that is.
Yeah. And it's funny because even that question, what are you good at? People still struggle with that. There are people that go, I don't know, or they minimize what it is that they can do. I can remember, years and years ago, I was still a child, and my mother signed us up for these day camps where they, you go out for the day and go on excursions and trips around the city, and a bunch of kids, and that's how you spend your summer. And so we did that one year, and we were with kids of different age groups. And I remember I was with this young boy, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, he just gravitated to me, and he wanted to hold my hand and walk around. And I remember one of the counselors, they said, "Oh, you're going to be like a really good leader, right? You really influence people." And I had no idea what they were talking about. Like to me, I was like, this is this kid that wants to hang out with me. That's how I viewed it. Like I was minimizing what was happening in that moment, but there's truth to the things that people say about us. And even if we can't see it, again, I'll reiterate again, although we can't see it, they can. And that's when we really should be paying attention.
Absolutely. If a person has a challenge with the question, what are you naturally good at? One of my favorite questions is, what do you love?
Gotcha.
What do you love? What is the thing that when you think about it, you light up inside, right? It's a thing that somebody asks you a question, you can't stop talking about it.
Right.
What is it that you love?
Right.
And so often, like, one of my natural gifts is math. I'm really great at math. From the time I was a child, adults in my neighborhood would come to my parents to ask for me to tutor them in math. Right. Wow. But I also loved math. I had a love for it. I was naturally good at it. It's something people always ask me to do. And so one of the things that I do now, I was a college math professor. And even though, I'm self-employed and I focus on coaching, I still do a little math tutoring because I love math. And so if I ask you what you love and kind of put some of those questions together, it can help direct you in the right direction.
So that question, what you love doing or what you're good at, that's would that be the first step in finding your purpose? That's
the first purpose finding question. What do you love? I used to ask people, and my sister said I was famous for, I'm at the grocery store in the line, I asked the cashier. I used to always say, what's your dream? And people would go, huh? And they'd have to really pause. Then I say, okay, well, tell me what you love. And then they start rolling, immediately. So that question really opens the door for us to ask the other questions. Because if we can identify what we love, let's write those things down. And as they begin answering the other questions, like, wait a minute, this relates to the things I already had written down. And so they kind of just, the love opens the door for everything else.
Is that kind of what did it for you?
Well, whenever I started working with my coach, the thing that I go back to over and over again is that I love people. And so everything that I do is tied to people and my love for people. So that was the first thing. What do I love? What am I naturally good at? Talking to other people, helping people create plans, to get things done. And so, yes, love opened the door. And then as we went through all this, we were able to identify some really key areas that I could work in where my purpose could be fulfilled, but I could also create income for my family. And I tell people, so every day I get to do things I love and people happen to send me money. They you know what I'm saying? I do stuff every day.
I like that.
I would do it for free. Now, you can't tell everybody you would do it for free.
No.
And a lot of it I was giving away when I met my coach. She said, you're doing all of this. She said, you're giving it to everybody for free. She said, if you started, charging for certain things, you could come off of your job and you could do what you love, full time. Life-changing advice. So now, like I said, the things that I do, I have people right now that I tutor, their children, and they have a job loss or whatever. I'm like, I love math. I'm gonna tutor your kid anyway. Whatever you can pay me again, pay me. But I love it so much that I would do it anyway. That's how it's a part of your purpose, because that thing, that love will pull you forward when the obstacles come, when all the, things aren't necessarily going right. Your love for that will keep you going in that direction.
Got you. So let's continue that conversation at the discovery of purpose. We understand what that first question is, or what's the next step look like?
The next question is, what do you see in the world when you walk around?
Okay.
Because we all see something different. There's a reason you see what you see. That question came from the pastor of the church I attended in Greenwood, South Carolina, Dr. Rodney Schultz.
Okay.
And he asked that question one Sunday. He gave everybody a note card. He said, for the next week, write down what you see and come back and let's talk about it.
Okay.
And I noticed everywhere I went, I saw hurting people. Somebody's hurt. Somebody needs help. Somebody's sad. I saw all these things. Now, my son saw division, segregation of people. He's a natural connector. He connects people, right?
Okay.
And so what he talked to us about was the things you keep seeing are tied to why you're here. Somebody else could walk into a room and not see what you see, right? And that helps you to kind of tap into that. I'm the kind of person, like when I'm speaking from stage or working with a group of women, when I walk in the room, it's like somebody puts a spotlight over the lights of the heads of women who need me the most. And before I didn't always know why, but I just knew, oh, she looks like she needs a hug. Let me go hug her, right? But now I know it's part of my purpose in the earth. I see what I see because it's part of why I'm here.
And I get the sense that because you're so clear on your purpose, so when, for example, you walk in that room, you know exactly who to zero in on.
Oh, absolutely. And again, this is not something I always recognized that I was doing. I wasn't, cognizant of the fact that this is what was happening. I was just kind of following my heart, right?
Right.
She looks sad. But now I know that I see her because part of my purpose is to help her with whatever it is she's going through. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that's an interesting conversation to have with people when they start talking about that. Like I have one of my niece, for instance, has this love for homeless people. And wherever she goes, she sees homeless people.
Right.
Why? And I tell her, I said, trust me, you're wondering why nobody else is helping them, why nobody else. I said, you're the somebody that's supposed to, because they don't see them the way you see them. Right. So the fact that you see them, that's a part of your purpose.
Right. I think it really also speaks to is that the unique perspective that we all have as you walk around this planet and this world and our glasses, you're talking about roller coaster glasses. Well, all our glasses are different. We see it, our vision of what we see and how and what we zero on isn't the same. And I think that's the beautiful part about that is that's what brings a richness to society, right? Is that we all have this uniqueness of what we see, how we can respond, how we react to situations, and it just makes it more vivid and alive. And so that perspective, I think, is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It is, it's one of the things that really helped me understand why we all are working in so many different areas. There are sometimes people who will say, why are they raising money for this? It could better go over here. Right. Or why are they doing this? It should be over here. And my answer is always because that's their purpose. It's tied to why they're here. There's a reason we aren't all focused on the same thing. If we each fulfill our individual purpose, all the needs get met.
Yes.
The whales get saved. The forests get saved. The people get help. The homeless get home. Does it make sense? Because we all have a different purpose. So that's right. If we're focused on ours, then everything gets taken care of. And another thing that I had to stop doing, because there was a time that I felt like anything that was good, I was supposed to do it. Right? Oh, it's good work. I should be a part of it.
Right.
And I had a mentor of mine to say, every good work is not God's work for you.
Right.
She said, if you're out here chasing every good work, then what you're here for doesn't get done.
Right.
She said, yes, they can have good work and yes, you can support them. She said, but you can't let that spread you so thin that you don't fulfill your purpose. So those two things have really helped me.
Yeah, you can't do everything. And not everything is meant for you to do.
Everything.
Right.
You can't do everything.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. I get that loud and clear. Okay. So, and those are so, again, that's a great question. What do you see in the world? And so you've answered that question. You figured out, so if you're kind of following that process, you figure out what I like, what I love. I'm seeing what I see in the world. Then what comes next?
Well, there are a couple other questions because we really got to narrow things down. I ask who inspires you. Very often the people that inspire you have similar purpose. There's something about them that's connected to you. There's another question like, what would you teach? If someone gave you the opportunity to have a group of people, you could teach them anything. What would that thing be? Another question, if you were 90 years old and you were looking back over your life, what were the things that you would truly regret if you didn't do them? And so as you put all these things together, you begin to identify certain areas in which your purpose may lie. For example, I had a young lady once I was working with that was working at a daycare and she was miserable. She told me she would sit in her car and she would cry every day before she went in the daycare. And I told her, those children don't want to see you. I said,
she doesn't want to see them. She doesn't want to see them either.
She doesn't want to see them either. So I started asking her these questions. And immediately her face lit up when she started talking about the elderly. She said, I would love working with old people. She said, I love going to the nursing home and volunteering and all these other things. And so everything, all her questions kept leading back to this type of work. And I told her, I said, well, it's time for you to consider if you're going to change careers or if you're going to stay where you are and find a way to volunteer and serve more in those arenas.
Right.
So once you determine what it is, then the question is this a career change that I need to look into? Or is this a nonprofit I need to start? Is there an organization in the community already doing this work that I can volunteer to assist, right? So you just have to figure out what that means for your life. Not everyone has the luxury to say, oh, I'm just leaving this job and going to another one.
Right.
So maybe you've got to work where you are, but you find an outlet for you to pursue that purpose.
I just love the way it sounds. I really do. Like finding that outlet for you to pursue that purpose, like, you know, energy that you have, that thing that's inside you that's dying to explode. Like it's almost like I've got the image of a you know, the fireman's got their hose, right, and they open it up and it gets burst of water. Like where do you want it to? Where are you targeting? Right. That's the piece that just kind of excites me.
Okay, I'm moving my phone just a little bit because it's about to die. And I'm sorry.
No worries.
All right, there we go. We're good.
Yeah. So no, again, yeah, that point just it's like who you're looking to inspire and impact.
All right, there we go.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say the point again, who are we looking to impact and inspire? And so
absolutely.
Target. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, for me, when I looked at number one, who inspired me and who I'm trying to inspire and impact. Number one, I found I was most inspired by Maya Angelou. I'm such a big Maya Angelou fan. I always felt like she was speaking to me, and I looked at the work she did in her life and how she impacted so many people. And I wanted to have that same type of impact. I wanted to be able for people to look at me and say, because you showed up in my life, I found my purpose, and now my life is better. And so it's interesting. I would run into people in different places. It's like I didn't have to look for people to work with. I would run into them or they would be seeking me, and we would just encounter each other. And we definitely had the opportunity to work together and do great things.
I would imagine, and I say this because I hear it often too about a positive attitude and how much of a difference that can make to others and the impact that it has. I would suspect that, you, much like myself, it's a bit more natural in terms of our positivity and how we, impact others. But for some, it takes a bit of work, right? For some people, it's not as easy. And, there's a bevy of reasons, why that could possibly be the case. How does someone create a positive attitude or a positive mindset?
Well, for me, as you said, it does tend to be kind of a natural thing. And not because I'm naturally positive necessarily, but because that's the way I was raised. My mother spoke life into me every time that I ever encountered her. It was always, Regina, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're amazing. God has great plans for your life. And when you hear that every day, you believe it. And so when you walk out into the world and somebody says something negative, you say, well, my mama said that I'm amazing. So that attitude definitely has helped me. Now, the other piece to that is putting things in place to help you keep that positive attitude. And so my first book was Regina Sunshine State of Mind, 7 Keys to Help You Get Your Mind Right.
Okay.
And all that was about putting things in place in your life to keep you positive, to help you stay positive. Prayer, reading positive books, spending time around people, that have positive attitudes. Those types of things you have to put in place because, if you just allow life to keep lifing, then sometimes it can strip some of those things away. So yes, I had a great foundation. I'll say that first. I had a great foundation, but become that so that I could keep myself in this frame of mind.
Right. So it certainly does take some work. And I mean, as easy as it may be to get there, it's maintaining is what we're talking about, right? And maintain that throughout. And so being around the things that, and again, it goes back to being around the things you love and enjoy and why it's so important to know your purpose. Because if you know your purpose brings you joy, happiness, fulfillment, you're more likely to stay positive.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time that when you find your purpose, there's a peace there about knowing. Doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's going to be sunshine and roses from there. It just means there's peace because you know you're where you're supposed to be. There's a peace in being where you're supposed to be that you can't find anywhere else. So then, like you said, when it's hard, when you face challenges, your love for that thing, the fact it brings you joy, that moves you forward when life is happening. I think I may have told you previously, and I lost both of my parents at the end of 2022. My mother died on November 17th, 2022. And then 27 days after that, my father passed. And for a while there, I felt like the world was upside down and I was lost. I went from being Regina Sunshine to just not even knowing who I really was next. Because if you remember, my mother was the center. Yes. She was the original sunshine. I tell people all the time, I learned to love people by watching how she loved people. And so, there was some time that grief piece can kind of knock you down. And so I did for a period of time, just kind of step back and sat down and give myself a chance to grieve. But the thing that kept pulling at me, purpose. I kept seeing things around me. I kept hearing about opportunities to work with people and help people. That purpose piece kept pulling at me. And I had a dream about my mother. And in the dream, I'm saying, I don't know who I am. And she looks at me and she says, you know who you are. You know who you are. And it was a reminder that I'm the same person I was before all these things happened. The purpose that was put inside of me was the same for me before this happened as it was after. And I often tell my son, God knows everything you're going to face. And he still puts the purpose that he puts inside of you. And so I had a conversation with my uncle who's a pastor, and he told me, Regina, it's time to shake it off and keep going. Right. There's work to be done. There's still purpose in your life. And so I got up and I said, let's go.
Yeah, there's so much to be said about adversity and what to do when it comes. And I think I've oftentimes talked to individuals about the importance of fortifying yourself with positivity and fortifying and building up your almost like you're building up your strength and your character. So yes. When adversity arrives, you're equipped for it and you're ready for it, as opposed to waiting for it to get at your doorstep and you're like, okay, now let me get ready, right? We don't get advance notice when it's going to come. No. We don't get a heads up. We don't get a phone call. You certainly didn't when you lost both of your parents. You just had to respond, react, and move forward. And so there's much to be said about preparing ourselves, making ourselves as whole as we possibly can, knowing that, if something happens, we might get knocked off our course a little bit. And not to say they don't impact us, because absolutely there's an impact. It's not about falling down. It's how quickly it is for you to get back up.
Absolutely. I hired a grief coach during that time that had been through the same thing. She lost her mother, high level, college professor, business owner. So high performing female that I could totally identify with, because I needed to know, that I could get back up, as you said. And that's one of the things she said to me. She said, you've got the foundation. She says, you already have it there. Go back to what you know, right? Go back to what you know and hold on to that and move forward. And you're right. That foundation, already knowing these things, already knowing my purpose, already knowing who I was, already knowing what to do, to impact myself, knowing that, even when I don't feel good, I'm going to have to say some positive things to myself. I'm going to have to listen to something that makes me feel good or inspires me to help me get to those next spaces. And so I went back to my affirmations, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I'm more than a conqueror through him who loves me. I started saying these things to myself over and over again to remind myself of what I know to be true when it seems like everything around me was spinning, because it seemed like the world was upside down. It seemed like it was upside down.
And that's all, as crazy as it sounds, that's all part of the process. Right? That's a natural part. That you feel uneasy and unsettled and things aren't right and upside down. I think all these things are going to the realities of these situations that we go through, and it's a matter of weathering the storm. I oftentimes use an analogy, Regina, of life being like a series of hills and valleys, right? So at the top of the hill, right, life's fantastic. You can celebrate. You're having a good time. There's joy. It's a party. Everything's great. But on that journey, every so often, that hill dips and it goes down in a valley where things are uncomfortable. They're not nice. There could be painful. There could be hurts. There could be all sorts of things in that valley. And the choice for us is we can stay in that valley and talk about how painful it is, or find a way to get back on top of that hill as quickly as we can. Because we know it's at top of that hill. That's where the joy is. That's where the happiness is.
Yes.
Not to say we're not. So again, the analogy quite simply is the valleys are going to come. It's just how long do we want to stay there?
Absolutely. And it's interesting. Some of the things that helped me in my valley.
Yeah.
I have a 28-year-old son that I find he's saying to me the things I've always said to him. It's always interesting when somebody's saying to you what you told them. And and he said to me, God already knew everything you were gonna face before you faced it, and he still gave you this purpose. The thing I've said to him so many times. And
like, I don't want to hear that right now, right?
No. And he said something, the thing that he said, I think that kind of hit me the hardest, and it even hurt a little. It was a friend, we had a friend of ours to pass away, and there were people who said, well, Regina, we hadn't seen you in a while, you hadn't been out, and one was inviting me to lunch, and I was like, no, I don't really want to come. And my son said to me, he said, if you were to go right now, he would see a shell of who you were before. And it hit me how far I was allowing myself to slip. Does that make sense? And it was a wake up moment. I was like, wait a minute. I got to get this together, because if my son, one thing about him, he's brutally honest. He's going to tell you the truth. If he said that, that's what he saw. And I began to, then I said, okay, that's it. I have got to make deliberate efforts to make sure I'm moving forward. And now everything has changed in just a short time, because I made the decision that I was going to make those steps. Now, I recognize the hard days are still going to come. I'm still going to have a moment where I want to pause. But the fact that I know there's purpose and I know I'm supposed to be doing these things, that pulls me forward when everything else is trying to drag me back. So I go back to what you said before, and I think that is so key. Building yourself up before you need it. Getting yourself strong and fortified before the trauma comes, before those things happen to you. Because life is going to life. Things are going to happen.
Yes.
You just got to be ready for them so that they don't knock you out of the game. Like you said, you fall down and never get back up. And I just thank God for my mother and everything she put in me. She put everything in me that I needed so that whenever I got knocked down, I could get myself back up.
That's right. And that's really what we have to focus on. I mean, you can't, if you do anything else, if you lose direction, you lose sight, it's going to be a longer road. It's a longer, and actually, quite frankly, I think it's a very slippery slope, because then you're, that abyss you're heading down, and, who knows, what happens after that. Right. And so you need to keep going.
Absolutely. I'm so thankful for him, for my grief coach, and for my sisters. I'm one of 5 girls. Like I said before, we talk on the phone, group talking daily. And we were very open about how we were feeling. It was a safe space, right? To say, this is how I'm feeling. And, and then when opportunities would arise for me to do things in the community, I'd be like, I don't know. And one of my sisters would always say, but you're Regina Sunshine. They need some sunshine, reminding me who I was, right? I needed that, because I know they love me and they're going to tell me the truth. So that they offer that place for me to have a moment, right? This is how I'm feeling. I'm not feeling so hot. I'm thinking about mama today. And they would say, well, mama would, you know how much she loved the work you did in the community. You know how much, all of that. And I know she was always so proud of the things I was doing. And I was like, so what would it look like for me to allow her transitioning to stop me from being who she created me to be? Right. Not who she created me, who she raised me to be, because God created me. But that does not tribute to her life. That does not give honor to who she was. Yes. And it definitely doesn't honor God for me not to use the gifts, talents, and abilities he put inside of me. Yeah. So I have to go back to that, in spite of how I feel, there's still work to do. Yeah. And I want to, at the end of this life, I want to hear well done. I want the well done. And so I've got to keep moving.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Use the gifts that you have and keep moving forward. There's always work to be done. There always is. And there's always a need to be met. There's always people that influencing, that motivation, that help. And if that's what your gifts are designed to, then you'll always have work. It's just there'll always be something to do. And so I absolutely love that. One of the things that you do is the Awesome Girl Project. Tell me what that's all about. because it's about the, I guess,
Man,
the empowerment, inspiring the work that we've been talking about up until this point.
I love those girls. I tell you, so the Awesome Girl Project started as the Awesome Girl Awards. You know, for years I was doing television and radio and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to do this segment on my talk show called the Awesome Girl Awards, where I was going to honor girls in the community that were what? Living on purpose. They were living whatever gift. Because, you know, most of the times, you know, in school, they're honored for academics and athletics, right?
Sure.
Those are the two things.
Yep.
But what about the girl that has her own business or is a community servant? You know, what about the girl that, you know, donates her time and energy to do things in the community? You know, that she's tapped into this thing that she loves and she's out actually doing it. And so I was like, I want to honor these girls just for being who God created them to be.
Love it.
And so I started there. And the 5th anniversary of the awards, we had an all-girl award show, girl DJ, girl caterers, girl MCs. It was phenomenal. And we launched the first Awesome Girl book project. And the title of the book was I Am an Awesome Girl. And it gave every girl the opportunity to talk about her life, her dreams, her hopes, and why she believed she was awesome. And we had 25 authors in that first book. And my goal was for other girls to read the book, find a girl that was like her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now identify, well, this girl is awesome, then what? I'm awesome. I'm like her. She has some of my same, you know, quirks or, you know, hobbies or things of that nature. And it went from there to the Awesome Girl Academy now, where, you know, parents reached out about wanting a positive space for their girl to interact with other girls. So I created that, where we do, you know, empowerment sessions, and, you know, I teach lessons and we do affirmations. I tell people the Awesome Girl Project is running ahead of me. It's dragging me, you know, because it's like the parents, the girls always, you know, want to do more. So we're actually launching our 5th book right now. We're working on that book, and it's called Food for the Awesome Girl Soul. We're doing a cookbook where the girls get to share a favorite family recipe and something that an elder, someone in their family shared with them that was a life lesson. So it's going to be a cookbook affirmation book. And so that's what the Awesome Girl Project is. I love it. I love it so much. I think I get more from it than the girls do. You know, the parents say the girls get a lot from it, but seeing them rise, right? Seeing them tap into what they love. Because I have these conversations with them when they're little. I'm like, we're going to figure out what your purpose is now. Or have you at least begin asking those questions so you don't spend your whole life chasing it or trying to figure out what it is. You know, so you can plan for a career now that gives you an opportunity to work in your purpose versus going to school for something, find out you don't like this thing, right? Yo, I don't like this. Like me with engineering, I still got the degree, but I was like, I don't like these hard hats. These hard hats and these steel toe boots don't work for me. You know, this is not it.
It's suppressing your shine, right?
Yes. Let me tell you something. You leave the plant at the end of the day, you're not cute. There's nothing cute about that life.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
So, but that's what the Awesome Girl Project is. It's giving me an opportunity to pour into them at an early age, the things that I found out later in life.
And the piece around that is just so phenomenal is the ripple effects that it can have, that can follow. It doesn't just happen here and it stops. It ripples throughout their lives and everyone around them. It ripples through them too. And so talk about having an impact. That's amazing. So amazing. Yeah,
I love it so much. And every
I can tell.
Every time I feel like it's hard, like you say, the purpose we're going to do this. In fact, just before I talked to you today, I was on the phone with someone from a local county courthouse looking for programs for girls. They want me to bring the book project into their young people that are on probation and help them become published authors. I was like, see, this thing keeps running ahead of me and pulling me.
Well, and I think that really what that speaks to is that when you land on where you're supposed to land, it does take off, right? So it's like it's like you're a passenger in the plane now, right? Your job was to get to the airport, right? Get through security, get through customs, get yourself on that plane, and now it's just taking off, and you're on for the ride.
Absolutely. You know, for a while there, I wasn't taking any appointments. I think I said it in a previous email. I just kind of had to, even when I thought I was starting back, And then when we went to the 1-year anniversary of everything, I was like, okay, it kind of hit me. But as soon as I said, all right, I'm taking appointments, every day somebody has called me with a new opportunity over the last 2 weeks.
Isn't that
And when I
lovely?
say every day,
Isn't
and I
that-
told my sister, she said, the floodgates are open, aren't they? I was like, floodgates are open right now. It's like they were just waiting for me to come back.
Yeah. And so our job now is be ready to receive, right? We've talked
Yes.
about it. Be ready to receive with open arms. Let's go. And so I'm so glad that you're doing that, because really, really what that is, it's living out your purpose, right?
Absolutely. And again, I'm so thankful that I was already operating in these spaces, because I come back to the fact that if not for this, where would I have landed when all this stuff happened, right? And so as soon as I said I was ready to go, it all just fell back in line like I had never left,
Yeah.
And so it's been a beautiful thing, because every time I'm able to operate in those spaces, it affirms who I am. It brings joy. So those days that might be, in other cases, sad days, there's joy there, because I'm operating in spaces that I love, and that, again, like I said, I would do for free. Now, don't you tell those people I would do it for free, because they got good grant money.
Keep it all a secret. Keep it all a secret. Regina, this has been such a phenomenal conversation, and I do appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I knew from the very beginning that because in this podcast we spend so much time encouraging people to live that life, right? And go out there and take risks and take chances and be bold in your actions and demonstrate the courageousness that's inside all of us. Because even if you take that step and you don't know where it'll go, like so even if you take that step and you quote unquote you fail, well, you just learned a lesson for what you can do for the next time, and maybe you can take that lesson and give it to someone else to help them. But you still and that's the reason why you should, instead of question, take that step regardless, because you never know what'll come out of it. So clearly you've done that, and it's phenomenal to hear.
Well, when you say, I always tell people, if you ask for something and you try for something and get a no, you got the same thing you had before you started, right? So if you're not any, worse for the wear, and it gives you the possibility for the yes. And you're right, you learn from it. You learn, okay, maybe I'll do it different next time. Or,
Right.
like you said, it's a lesson for you to pass on to somebody else, so it's going to help them on their journey. But you just have to keep going. I always say, if you want the champion's reward, you got to be willing to fight the champion's fight. You got to be willing to get in the ring and see what happens. And I use that analogy all the time, because my son is an MMA fighter, and I understand it. People outside the ring never find out how great they really are. You got to get in the game to find out. You got to get off the sidelines. And once you do, once you show up where you were supposed to be all the time, the blessings are already there waiting for you. They were just waiting for you.
You're waiting for you to show up.
They were just waiting for you to show up.
Yep. And even it's funny, use the example of the MMA fighter. I think a really key lesson in that, an illustration, is the fact that, you're going to get into that octagon or that ring, right? Mm-hmm. And you're not going to come out unscathed. Like, no one's ever, the greatest fighters, the greatest champions of the world have never reached the top without getting punched in the mouth once in a while, or hit in the head, or dropped, or none of those things. No one comes out unscathed. So that's also a really important lesson to know, that when we go into the battle, it is going to be a battle, right? It's really coming down to be tough enough to come out on the other side. So
absolutely. My son's first fight, I will never forget. After the fight, he said, he got in there, and at first it was like, oh, I've done this before. He said, and the guy started hitting him really hard. He said, wait a minute. He said, he's really trying to hurt me. He said, so you got to change your mindset up real quick. Like, oh, this is real. I got to do this. But like you said, he came out a different person. He's been in the fight now. So you know what it is to be hit, right? And to keep going. And so that is one of the things that does work out for your good. It's like when the Bible talks about, everything working out for your good, right? Yes. It doesn't mean that everything is good. It just means it's going to work things out for your good. So you're in these battles and you get hurt, right? but it leads you to the next space that you need to be in. So it's leading you into the, you know, you learn lessons, you get better, you learn what not to do, you learn how to pick yourself up. So you get all these good lessons that now help you move to the next space. Yeah. And so that's the working out for your good. You know, man, I got knocked down, but I learned one, two, three different lessons that now I'm going to take them into this next fight so that I come out with a better outcome. And so it definitely works out for your good.
I love it. I love it. Regina, this has been awesome. I so appreciate this time with you. Certainly inspiring, uplifting, and I think your messages with respect to what people can do and the limitless possibilities they have inside of them is an important message for people. For individuals that have heard you and have got excited by you, and inspired by you, and want to learn more about you and connect with you, where can we send them?
Well, first of all,
you've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.
My social media links are there. Everything is there. You can contact me there. It's just reginasunshine.com. And I do want to see my grandson popped in. See, this is life right now.
Life is right here. Yeah.
But I always like to leave people with my personal motto. It's not over till I win. I always say that it's not over till I win. And if I hadn't won yet, that just means it's not over. So it's a reminder to everybody, you get knocked down, it gets hard. It's still not over because you hadn't won yet. So you just keep going until you win.
I love it. I love it. Regina, thank you so much. This has been a great to spend time with you, and all the best, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.